their windows saying, "We support this, we support Fairness Elkins." And I put these binders together for each council member with, it's upside down, with these declarations, testimonials, like so many just community members wrote letters to the council, and then articles from talking about like Thurmond, who had passed it, a letter, if you guys remember House Bill 2881 that was trying to nullify all local non-discrimination legislation, like Mayor John Manchester of Lewisburg, he wrote a really eloquent letter in opposition to that, and I included that in these binders, and I presented those to the council members about a week before the meeting where they voted. And there were a couple who, the night of the meeting, I went by their mailboxes and they still hadn't taken them out, which was kind of disappointing. But there were some that read every letter, read everything that was included. And I think that made it a little more personal to see that, okay, there are these individuals in our community that really want this. There are these businesses that really want this. We have to make this happen. And the ones who supported it very passionately. And it was, hearing them speak at the meeting in favor of it was really inspiring. And it was just a matter of getting to the council members at that personal level. So.
We kind of, which thank you guys for going first, by the way. We kind of built on what was already done with the fairness stickers, and like we literally in an afternoon, I went through almost every business in downtown, and had one business that refused to do it, and it was, I think she supported it, but she had a brand new business, she was nervous, and later I went back and guilted her because the rest of the city already had stickers in their windows, and I told her she was the only one that didn't, so she actually looked bad because she didn't. But one of the strategies that we went was we kind of let the policy, kind of let them hang themselves on ignorance, and part of their strategy was to call council members and threaten to not vote for them, threaten their jobs, threaten them physically, actually. I mean, we had, our council meeting they had to bring in metal detectors, policemen, everything, because it had gotten so, the opposition had gotten so ugly with their comments, and not to the city council members, but in the paper, comments about gay, I mean, they were using every kind of slur they could, the biblical passages, everything. And to the council members, this was even before the council meeting. So, and when I spoke to everybody, I made it clear, like you were saying, I made it clear to be very respectful, to say what you wanted to say. If you called in, to say what you wanted to say, be very respectful. Do not threaten, do not bring up voting, do not do anything like that. We are going to take the high road through the whole thing. And that really helped because that actually turned one of the council members, the Martinsburg Journal, the local paper, interviewed one of the council members the night before the vote, and because it turned into a really, really big deal. And he publicly stated how disappointed he was in the opposition. And one of the things that they also did was the Family Policy Council basically wrote their letters for them, did carbon copy letters, and sent them all, and they passed them out of their churches to mail them to the city council. Well, first of all, they could tell them what it was, and that was another thing that we did, was like, if you're gonna write a letter, make it very personal. We're not gonna send out carbon copy letters to everybody to send in from Fairness. Tell them why you want tell them why you want this ordinance to pass, tell them why, just make it very, very personal, and make it like you care about it. So it's not just people standing up because somebody's told them to. Somebody's told them that it's wrong. So that worked out really well for us. And we just had great community support.
Yeah, Ty, I want to bring it back. It is funny when you say, there are only 5 people in our town. And it was like incredible to start being able to say in West Virginia, the smallest town of 5 people, Thurmond has passed an ordinance, and the largest city of Charleston has passed an ordinance. So from the smallest to the largest, it's a priority of West Virginia to pass ordinances like these. communities and install, you know, non-discrimination protections for LGBT citizens. But talk to me about why it's important in a town of 5 where there aren't any gay people specifically, and no LGBT community to be discriminated against. I know we hear a lot of the opposition saying, well, you know, discrimination doesn't exist. It's not something that happens in our town. And so, with a concrete example of such a small town, tell me like why it's important to pass it in Thurman.
You know, a lot of people have asked me similar things with that, and I don't think I really have a great answer for that, because I think in a lot of ways it's self-evident. But I mean, I guess my biggest thing is how many people do you have to have for it to be acceptable? Like 7, 8? You know, what's the cutoff? So I think it's kind of a silly argument to say that, well, this doesn't affect anybody. And it actually does. The Park Service still has houses there that they rent out to AmeriCorps people and things like that. So that law would apply to them as well. So, you know, I think it really is important because, I mean, just for the sheer fact that while our community doesn't have LGBT community members in it, very small towns might that are very close in population to us. And so I kind of viewed it as a way to sort of lead from the bottom, I guess, and sort of make it okay for other towns that are small to pass it as well, and not sort of have a top-down effect, but, you know, kind of help meet in the middle from, like you said, from the smallest town to the largest town.
Yeah, and Thurman passed it towards the beginning of the year, like February or something.
Mm-hmm.
How did it, like Katie and Joe, how did Thurman kick off things in your town, or how did it like facilitate that for you guys?
Well, for us, it was within a week before the city council meeting where they were going to vote on the resolution. So we really, really used that because Elkins kind of prides itself on being somewhat progressive, not necessarily in the political sense, but just on top of things. And so to say, this town that has 5 people in it just passed this, why aren't we? It was kind of a challenge for them in a way. We were challenging them, and it is like the biggest city in the state and the smallest town, so why not us? And I think that did help sway a couple of the ones that were on the fence.
First of all, I think it's incredible that a town that has no gay people, when it passes an ordinance, that it's protecting people that aren't even there yet. So I congratulate you.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome. And trust me, I used every tool and weapon I could to try to get people motivated, because one of the things that we use is Harper's Ferry already has an ordinance in the Eastern Panhandle. And Shepherdstown, if anyone is familiar with Shepherdstown used to be the 3rd largest gay city in the country back in like the 80s and 70s and 80s. Was always this joke. It's always been a very, very gay-friendly, gay town. So part of the strategy I used was that I wanted Martinsburg to pass an ordinance before Shepherdstown did. So, you know, you use whatever you can. And one of the things that I really wanted to get across to people was you have to kind of know, I mean, it sounds a little harsh, but you have to know your enemy when you're going into these things. Because as the movie shows, they will, if you think that they won't say or do certain things, they will absolutely say and do things 10 times worse. So you have to really, you know, they say think like a criminal, or you have to think like your opposition, which is one of the things that really kind of helped us.
That you perfectly led into the next question I have for you guys. So HB 2881, which is kind of like the HR 427 that's happening in Idaho, was something that fairness and the LGBT community and all the allies fought this past legislative session. Ty, can you talk to me about like the timeline about how HB 2881 happened?
I first heard about it, I got a call from Andrew Schneider, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, and he told me that there was a a bill about to be passed in the legislature that would have nullified everything that, not only what we had done, but obviously the other towns, and it affected, as one person pointed out at the House hearing, that it affected retirement, or it was a old age sort of.
Right, because age is not actually protected in the West Virginia Human Rights Act either. So sexual orientation, gender identity, and age has been left out as well.
Yeah. And I don't think the people that sponsored that bill even recognized that that was one of the implications of it, which just goes to show how silly the whole thing was. But so I got a call from Andrew about it, and I guess it was kind of it was a sneak attack, really. They tried to do it, I guess, in the subcommittee and push it out through, and Andrew had requested a hearing for it, and luckily we were able to get that, and enough people came out. An amazing amount of people came out
that was awesome.
speaking out against it. It was really, really cool seeing those people. I think there was like 4 people there. It reminded me just of, like they said in there, like 2 people spoke again, for it. And so it was, it honestly opened my eyes to some of the methods that unfortunately are utilized by our legislators. It really, on the one hand, it really disappointed me in the leadership of our state. But on the other hand, it made me realize that the legislature is not infallible, and quite the opposite in some ways. And that kind of gave me hope at the same time that it kind of frightened me that these people were in the legislature.